Hey guys, Jeremy here with Simple Little Life. I've got a real quick tip for you today. It's not revolutionary, it's not going to change your life, but it might be useful to at least one of you. So recently I had a gentleman order 2 custom knives. They're the exact same knife but in a different steel. One's S35VN, one is Nitro V. Ultimately he wants to have these knives and kind of see what the difference in the steel is. He sent me the template for these blades, so these are completely his design. And I'm trying to make these like identical. Even when I was doing the thumb jimping, what I would actually do was I'd get it done on one blade and then I would clamp the blades together and do it on the other one. We have jimping there. So I want these things to be as close as possible. Also, the bevels, I want these bevels to match exactly, and I was thinking about how I was gonna get this done. I want to do a jig on these bevels.
How dare you!
So that I can maintain very consistent angles. They're the exact same steel thickness. They've both got the stippling texture that I do with the needle scaler. And I was struggling with a way to repeatedly set these things up so I could clamp it to the jig, so I could keep this angled plunge line, but keep it the same from this side to this side, from this side to this side. I want everything to match up nicely. The solution I came up with is ridiculously simple. I started out with the very first grinding jig I ever made. This is a piece of angle iron. I kind of cut this in here so I can see the edges on certain knives. On smaller blades, as the blade kind of goes towards the tip, I was having trouble getting in there, so that's why I've kind of rounded this down. And then I've got a jacking bolt. It's a 3/8 bolt. I've tapped the plate and I've got a jam nut on here so that I can kind of adjust the angle, lock it in position. And I was thinking, without, making something brand new, and I mean, you can see this thing has years of wear on it. I've probably used this thing for 5 or 6, maybe 7 years even, maybe more. Now, initially what I had thought about doing was taking these blades, setting it on my granite block so I can set this here, and then use a 1, 2, 3 block, kind of reference that very first jimping groove, because they're the same on both knives, and then I could clamp right here. And I thought, that's great, I can do that. And then when I flip over to this side, I can do the same thing, because our datum point is gonna be where the blade sits, and then where it locks into there on that first groove, clamp it down, good to go. Issue with that is that if you have this up in the air, there is always a chance that as you're grinding, this is gonna move down. And it's fairly likely. You've gotta have a really crazy clamp on there. And I like to eliminate the possibility of anything moving and not have to rely on a friction fit from a clamp force. This little tiny hole was the key to the whole issue. Let me explain. So on both of these knives, I've got the pin locations in the exact same spot. So when I stack these up like this, they are exactly the same. This one is the same. When I line every aspect of the blade up, everything matches. So I put a little tiny pin in this thing, and that pin lines up with that hole right there. I took a piece of the pin material, which in this case is brass. One of the blades is gonna have brass hardware, one of them's gonna have carbon fiber. But I can put this in here. It's a really nice precision fit. And again, this is after heat treat, and I can just sit that in there. Now what I also did was I made sure that that pin that goes in there was just smaller than the thickness of these two. So you see there's no pin sticking out. What that allows me to do is use a cant twist clamp, and I'll actually clamp it over that pin so that while I'm grinding, it won't wobble out. Now the pin's held captive, the knife is locked down secure. I'm using this to keep this tight to the jig, but I'm not having to make sure this is so tight that this knife isn't gonna move. As long as I focus on keeping this down, which it's gonna be, I mean the belt's gonna be putting pressure down here, it's not very likely it's gonna travel up in this direction. But now I've got very repeatable angles, and I can kind of keep this plunge angle up and down consistent from this side to this side. And it actually works really, really good. I've done the rough grinds on both of these blades, and when I look down like this, I've got some really nice, straight, matching angles and between both of these knives. A lot of times when we see these multi-adjustable knife grinding jigs, they look complicated. A lot of times you'll be a grid of holes that are tapped that you can use various screws into and something like that. And I think often I kind of get confused thinking that I need something that fancy and that complicated. But you think about the versatility of something like this, and if I had to reproduce this, say for a different knife that I had, I want different pin locations. You can see I've already utilized this idea in the past, but I have a couple tapped holes here. There's still room to put other holes to match this, and really, another piece of angle iron, another jacking bolt, and we can do all these things. Again, not something revolutionary, not something that's gonna blow your mind, but something that might help some of you, and for that reason, I'll share it. Thanks for watching, guys. You have a great day. Cheers.